Making faces while we ready to go live. Welcome back. Time for another question about work. If you're new, I'm Roy. I'm a startup investor in the future of work. Today is day 120, I think. Is that right? Something like that. I love having guests with whom I've had a chance to work before. And so Motto, I got to know working on a Get Out the Vote project called Walk the Vote. And his day job, which I guess is what you were doing with us, is being a fractional CMO for social impact organizations. And as a future of work productivity junkie myself, and this week we're talking about calendars and how we manage time, I saw a fellow junkie, or I don't know about junkie, but a fellow expert, let's put it that way, in Motto. And so we will ask and break down the following question today, which is, when I am in a state of everything feeling important, how do I kill things? Motto, tell us.
Thanks, Roy. I think when we first talked about this, the exact phrase was, how do we kill projects when everything is on fire? Which is probably more appropriate in 2020.
Totally.
I'm not great at this. Like, it takes a lot of work and like diligence and discipline to kind of like constantly refine it. But I find that making a list of all things is actually like the best starting point for this. So I like to, take a deep breath, figure out, number one, like, what are the most important things to me, right? And I literally just write down the first three things that come to mind about what's important. Because
so
what's
important, I understand. In that case, you don't mean a list of all of the things that you are considering killing. You mean a list of your own like inner priorities of importance, or what kinds of things go on that list?
Yeah, that's exactly right. This is like your North Star, right? Like, I know at any given moment that, the things that are important to me are my family, my health, and then work, right? And so like that's an easy one, like a top three list. And look, this process works for me. You might need five, right? You probably don't need 25, but
Right.
five is probably cool, and one is probably too few. But I start by writing down that, and that is like the North Star of it all. And then we get into it. Then you write down everything that you think you're working on. And I say you think you're working on it because you might think you're working on something and then realize through this process that actually you're not. And that's not a problem. That's actually a good thing. I think part of figuring out what it is that you're working on also means clearing like mental inventory and space so that you don't get stressed.
Yeah, I have to be honest, that is the part of the process where I often get stuck, is that when everything is on fire, I am often so overwhelmed that figuring out how to get the clarity to even do this kind of exercise, it's like this kind of exercise is the precise thing that I defer. And what I really appreciate about what you're saying, and I want to let you keep going, is that this is actually a pretty lightweight exercise. This is not like take 90 minutes to do a thorough examination. This is like as lightweight as you could imagine.
Yeah, that's right. It's kind of more of like a gross sorting exercise than a
Yeah.
fine sorting exercise, if that
Yeah.
makes
Really
sense.
good way to put it.
Yeah. So, I write down everything that I think I'm working on, and then I basically make a line, right? And then, like, on one side of the line is everything that fits into those top three things that I spoke about before, the North Star. And it either falls in or it doesn't, right? It's kind of like a really binary exercise. And if you think that
Mhm.
something's like on the margin, it doesn't fit. Like, get rid of
When
it,
in doubt,
right?
cut it out.
When in doubt, cut it out. And that actually is like that's a huge step in and of itself, right? So now you need to look at all those things that aren't part of your priorities and figure out, like, there's basically, again, like two piles, right? You've either started something or you haven't started something. And the same principle applies. If you think you might have started something, but you're not sure, you
Then
didn't
you
start it.
started it.
You didn't start it.
Oh,
And
you
that's
did.
okay.
Oh, meaning like I often trick myself into stuff and be like, oh, that's barely begun. But then I realize I've spun up other people on it or something like that. You're saying like, don't give yourself credit for doing things you have yet to do.
That's correct. That's
Got it.
right. You should be like your own strictest teacher on
Yeah.
this, more than anything. And then you do the next, two-step sorting exercise, which is looking at the things that you've started and figuring out which of those are commitments to other people, right? And that's important too, because even though something might not be in your top three, doesn't mean that it's not in someone else's top three.
Totally.
And that's your next sort of like pile to sort through. And then once you've done that, you go into that pile of things that you've started and that are commitments to other people. And you have to ask yourself, like, does this project have meaningful value to them, for that other person? Will it hurt them if you don't deliver on it? And that needs to be in your consideration set too, right? Because we also serve other people and promise to serve other people, and we need to figure out, like, what's the impact of letting something hit the floor. And it's okay if it does, but you need to know about it.
Right. Just know the
So
price.
now,
You can be prepared to pay it, basically.
totally right. And so now you've done enough work to get started, right? And so now you actually need to get a blank sheet of paper and say everything that that you haven't started, doesn't have a meaningful outside commitment, won't hurt people if you don't deliver, just kill it. Write it on that sheet of paper and stick that sheet of paper in Gringotts in your safe, and come back to it. It's a list of worthwhile projects, right? But not right now. They're just things that you can't do right now. But this is all like the easy separating the wheat from the chaff. And I think the hardest part about this exercise is the part where you need to be really honest and open and vulnerable to your friends and your colleagues and people you made commitments to. And if something's on that list and someone else is attached to it, you have to ask, how can I help you take this forward? Because I can't take it forward myself, or in the way that we originally discussed, in a time or fashion that would make sense, or at a level of fidelity that would make both of us satisfied. So let's call it what it is.
Yeah.
And how do I help you?
Having seen you do that a few times, I think one of the most useful things here is, like, a lot of us know, like, yes, I should do that. And then you get stuck. And I had this conversation yesterday with the founders, like, could you just help me with the wording on that? Because figuring out exactly how you say it, and in this document you've linked here, which, on social, we will also directly link to it. I just think that there is a real power to giving somebody not what you should say, but what are the defaults? Because that then makes it so much easier to just take it forward and actually come up with your own wording. So I really appreciate that.
Yeah, and everyone's going to have their own template or model,
sure.
And this is, I think, a starting point. This works for me most of the time. Doesn't work all the time.
One question.
It's a starting point.
No, it's great. And I also appreciate that it's both practical and empathetic to the other person, which is, as I've come to know you, characteristic of your style. When you do this exercise, or when you do something like it and kill things, what are the kinds of things you often find yourself killing? Like, for me, it's stuff like, the thing that I thought would be a really great idea for someone to do, and it doesn't exist, and I thought might as well be me. That's often the stuff that I want to kill. I mean, you and I were talking about, like, making, pencils for artists, like that. That's right. I'll noodle with, but it's in Gringotts, which, having watched Order of the Phoenix with my daughter last night, is like, perfect timing. But oftentimes those are the ones for me. What are the kinds of things you find yourself, killing?
Yeah, sometimes they're weird house projects that I realized through this process only I wanted, right? I think that the biggest pile or category that I realized is the things that I really imagined could come to life, but didn't have buy-in anywhere else.
Yeah.
So naturally fall to that list because you didn't start it, and it's not a commitment to anyone else, and it's not in your priorities.
Yeah.
And so that isn't to say that these aren't useful or valuable ideas. And I think if you apply this in a different way, if you apply this, to a specific work or a company, these might be great things for you to outsource, right? They might be things where if you think they provide value, but you can't put a body on it inside your organization, maybe you should outsource it. Maybe instead of building those walnut shelves myself by cutting down a tree and dragging it home, maybe I should just go to IKEA and buy a shelf,
Yeah.
right? And have a TaskRabbit put together, right? Like, I think it becomes a good tool to triage more than anything else. And the, most important thing about this that I've realized is just because you made this list once doesn't mean you made it forever, right?
Yeah.
Things shuffle, things change, and it's worthwhile, I find, to come back to, this exercise, if not that list, once in a while.
Yeah. And I've also seen, sorry, did I interrupt you?
No, not at all.
I've also seen that, and I keep talking to you all day, so let's bookmark this for a future one. We'll do more conversations in a future one. I've also seen for myself what ends up happening as you do this exercise more, the muscle gets stronger and you stop taking on things. You start saying no earlier in the process to save yourself from the pain, or, I will kill this unless I have this kind of validation of working with somebody else. And then you front load that risk earlier in the process. So you kind of develop this muscle memory that goes around it. And I think that can be really powerful too. It's not just about the exercise itself.
I think that's dead on, right? The Roy Stage-Gate process feels like it's a HBR PDF coming to you.
There we go. Well, thank you, Madho, for joining us on This Is Not Advice. It is not advice you gave. And just as a reminder for folks, the reason it's not advice is because Madho and I don't know how you should live your life. We only know how we should live ours. And most advice is people telling you how to do what they want in their life. And Min and I will be back tomorrow. If you have a question you want us to tackle, almost every question comes from something we've been asked. So just hit us up on the socials or otherwise. And if you want to find Madho at that link here in the video, you will find his contact information. If you're fortunate enough to get to work with him, good on you. And Madho, to be continued.
Thanks. Please do something nice for someone today.
Aw.
Everyone.